There we go. So thank you, Jocelyn, for being here with us. Narrow
Yeah.
Collective Season 2.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit of time since we did one of these interviews. I know you've been patiently waiting for a while, so I thank you for your patience, but also for showing up today and being ready to share your story. So I think the biggest thing for me when we do these interviews is just really just hearing what God's done in your life. And I know that you're excited to share that, but before we get into like the bulk of it, if you will.
hmm
I'm curious, did you grow up in church? Were you raised in the faith, or what was your upbringing like?
Yeah. So I did grow up in church. I grew up going to Calvary Chapel actually. So majority of my life I was at Calvary Golden Springs, which is in Diamond Bar. So I was there, gosh, for as long as I can remember, like earliest going to the kids' classes, like crying for my mom. Um, Up until high school was when I stopped going there. We ended up moving, so I started going to Calvary Chino Valley.
Mm.
Um, and then Coin few years after that. But yes, I've always grown up in the church. Definitely, there's been like I feel like most that grow up in the church and in the faith, like off and on.
Mhm.
Um, and so yeah, there were seasons where like I wasn't even going to church often. More so in my later years, I would say like maybe high school, college, and but yeah, definitely grew up. And I grew up a lot. I remember seeing like my grandma, and I can remember too, like being outside with my Bible, and I would always see my grandma like highlighting her Bible or like, studying. And so I started highlighting my Bible because I was like, I want to be like, like my grandma, like I want to be in my Bible, be in my word. And so I remember doing that like early, like I could say probably 8 years old,
Oh wow.
like doing that. But yeah, I definitely really started growing more in my faith. I would say middle school, high school, into college.
Mm.
So,
Okay, cool. So was it like your parents were they also raised in the faith, or was it something you guys as a family kind of grew together
um,
in?
they weren't actually like raised in the faith. They started going to church a little bit later. So
Mm.
it actually wasn't until, gosh, maybe like right before I was born or at the time that I
Okay.
was born, they started going to church, I believe. Um, yeah. And
Mm.
so that was even kind of off and on too
Okay.
for them.
Nice. And so during those like off seasons, like did you still have questions about the faith? Because I mean, it seems like grandma was a very like integral part of all this, right? It seemed like she was probably like the pillar of this. So
Yeah.
seeing grandma involved and seeing parents kind of in and out of it, how did that work for you? Like, was there confusion there, or what was it?
Not really confusion. I would say my mother was the one that was more consistent than my father. Um, so my grandparents, I had an aunt and uncle or have an aunt and uncle who are also, I would say, pillars. They served in the high school ministry while I was still going to Calvary Diamond Bar Golden Springs. And so they were the ones that would take me along with them. Thursday nights, we were there for a youth group. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say that it caused me to have any questions. I just knew like even in the times that my dad was not consistent, my mother was still
Mm.
consistent, so I was still consistent,
Okay,
and my siblings and I. So yeah, I wouldn't say definitely questions.
nice.
Yeah,
And your siblings now, how many siblings do you have?
I have four.
Four. Okay,
I'm
so
the oldest, but the shortest of five. Yeah.
okay, cool. Are they still in the faith or?
Yeah, some not so much, or not as strong. Some are
Mm.
growing for sure, even now still. So it's been really cool to see like the growth and the change and yeah, and just how everybody's like getting married, like having kids and how they're like raising their kids now to know the Lord and yeah, so that's been really cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, do you find yourself to be like, how would I say? I guess if are you the most consistent with the faith, and if so, how do you kind of lead your family in that way with your younger siblings?
Yeah. I would say I might be, yes. And I've noticed that shift a lot more within this last almost 2 years. Um, where and this is also something that the Lord has kind of just recently revealed to me. Like I feel like I have been in a training ground season like for ministry and leadership. And the Lord has just put on my heart that it's not even necessarily just ministry and leadership like in the church, but it's in your home and in
Mm.
your family. And so that blew my mind because I was like, what do you mean? Like, but being able to like practice that and step into that recently has been really cool. Like, yeah, just to encourage like my siblings in a different way. Like I would never have done that before. And I honestly would even say that I maybe have not been like the most consistent or best older sibling. Like I feel like I didn't always take care of them like the best, you know?
Mm.
Um, or even know them the best. But so now stepping into this season of like me knowing who I am and knowing the authority I have and like being able to encourage and translate and transfer that over and share that with them, you know, um, that's been really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned there was a point where you yourself were a little bit more inconsistent, right? Where it was kind of like you would show up and then maybe take a break. So what was that season like, and what led to maybe kind of slowing down your faith?
Yeah. I would say that mostly started, the thing that comes to mind first is like my college years. So I would say maybe even like after high school, going into college and even throughout college. Um, I was in a relationship for 4 years, I think it was, almost five. Um, I was engaged to this person at the time that got broken off in the middle of like wedding planning and stuff like that. And like venue was had and like dress was had. And so that was one of the really big shifts where I kind of took a step back and looked at my life like, okay, I'm here thinking like I'm walking with the Lord, but I'm not really. And that kind of was one of the first things that got me to go back deeper into my relationship with the Lord. Um, and yeah, so that was one of the first things. But even still, after that, like throughout college, like I was still struggling and I was still going back and forth, you know, one foot in, one foot out. I was lukewarm, or maybe not even lukewarm. I was probably in the cold water. But yeah, I started getting into like drinking. I was struggling with sexual sin also at that time. And that was going on, you know, off and on throughout the four, maybe 5 years that I can think of. And yeah, and then there's just another thing later on that when I was far away brought me back again. So
Okay.
yeah.
So going back to those phases of being in and out, you mentioned that there was kind of like a moment where it clicked for you, right? Where you said, okay, I feel like I'm maybe kind of distant from the Lord, and now I'm going to start pursuing it. So what was that moment like for you? And what was that moment, if you don't mind sharing?
The latest moment.
Yeah, so like that phase where you mentioned like in college where you were kind of like
Yes.
lukewarm, maybe not even lukewarm, and then eventually you just said, okay, now whether it's more recent now or if it was at college, like what was that moment?
Yes. So in college, yeah, I think it was just like I realized the life that I was living. I actually also met my best friend in college, and we were both, I guess, just going through that same phase of like we grew up with the Lord and we were walking with the Lord, and we said we were walking with the Lord, but we were really not, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and so I think that relationship had a lot to do with that shift too, because we were both like at the same time realizing like, man, this is what we're doing, but like we shouldn't be doing this. And like, where's the Lord at?
Hmm.
You know, where are we at with the Lord? And so conviction started coming in more then. Um, and yeah, so that led me into that space of like, okay, now I'm coming back to church. I'm more in my word. And it was more so too like I was in a lot of pain, right? I was hurting and um, I was praying, I was crying, and I was like, Lord, like, why is this happening? And praying for things to change, for things to go back to what they were, you know? Um, and that just wasn't what it was. So within that time of like me, like being in prayer and being in the word, that's just what brought me closer at that time. Um, and then I would say maybe like a few years after that, closer to like 2017, um, was when I got into another relationship. Um, so I think that's been the pattern, like relationships as far as like, I guess, unhealthy or not necessarily God centered relationships, I would say, um, that I started to again walk away from the Lord. And yeah, just live my life in that relationship. That was hard. And that's what took me back. And I was further away from the Lord again. And now I'm just in like a new season with him. So
Hmm,
yeah.
that's good. So, out of curiosity, what was it, if you don't mind sharing, what was it about the relationships themselves that pulled you away from God? Was it that they were not as invested in the Lord, or was it something specific?
Yes, I would definitely say that that was the main thing. Unequally yoked, being unequally yoked, and then there just wasn't like yeah, there just wasn't as much of a relationship with the Lord, if that, you know. Um, and there were times where there was like, okay, let me try um, on their end, but it was definitely not on the same page all the way with that, which led me to do other things. And um, yeah, just like you say, that the closer like your friendships, right? Whoever you're closest to, like if they're not with the Lord, it's easier for you to be pulled away than it is for you to bring them to the Lord, you know.
Mm.
Um, and I think I just struggled a lot with that, and I was like very codependent, um, and I noticed that a lot in my previous relationship. Um, yeah.
So, fast forwarding a little bit from, that point, meeting your best friend, you guys now being a little more rooted in the Lord and having these convictions, right? How did you end up at Coin?
Hmm. So I ended up at Coin. So there's a big thing that happened like before. I guess I'll actually get into that
Yeah,
and
let's
share
get let's get
that.
into that. Yeah.
I was married for a while, for a couple years, to a little over 2 years. Um, so that was like my previous relationship, and I met him in 2017. We were dating. We were together for six years, and that we ended up getting divorced. 24, or actually, yeah, we separated in 24. We were divorced the following year, but 24 July was when we separated. And I just remember, like, obviously that was like the hardest thing. That was the hardest thing that I have ever gone through and dealt with. Just everything that came with that relationship. And the aftermath of that. But I was in this season where I knew, like, again, I thought that I was in one space with the Lord, but I wasn't. And so after that happened, I was like, I know that I need to be close to Jesus right now. Like, I know that I need to be with you, Lord. And I just need to be like in community. Like, I can't even tell you that I even actually prayed for that. I know I wrote that down. Like, I need to be close to you, Jesus, and I need to be in community. And I was specifically like craving and desiring like community with other women, more so like close to my age. um yeah, and so I was in Colorado. My sister lives in Colorado with her family, and in October of 24, and I saw a sign. We were driving on the freeway, and I saw a sign that said Forge, like it's like a billboard sign.
Mhm.
And one of my friends had a clothing line, like a brand called Forge previously. And I was like, oh, Jay, I wonder how he's doing. Like, he was the first person I thought of.
Right.
And so, um, yeah, the next day, I think after when I got home from Colorado, maybe a couple days later, I'm at the Stater Brothers in like Chino, where,
Mhm.
and he comes up behind me in the line at the register. And I'm like, Jay, I was like, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about you. And yeah, so we just like reconnected, got phone numbers, Instagram. And then I was like, saw that he was doing, at the time, crew, or Coin was doing sports crew.
Hmm.
And so he had posted a picture of like them. I don't know what they were doing at the time, but a group of his team. And I was like, where are you playing? Like, where are you playing at? And he was like, oh, my church is doing like the sports thing. You should come play with us. And we're going to play softball next. And I played softball, so I was like, yeah, sure, I want to play. Um, so I went there maybe like the next weekend or the following weekend after that. And that's how I started going. And I was just like, man, like, I obviously not knowing exactly right at that moment, but like how the Lord orchestrated that and was like, it's coming, it's coming. And looking back, I'm always just like mind blown at like, oh my gosh, Lord, that is so good. Like, So ever since then, that first time, that was it. I just kept going and
Right.
I started doing the sports crew. I got involved real quick because I was like, I knew obviously it was a smaller church, younger church. Um, and I just wanted to be like involved and like surrounded. And obviously nobody knew at the time like what I was going through.
Yeah.
Um, but I knew like the Lord had brought me there. So
Yeah. Divine
yeah.
appointment, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where I know Pastor talked about it in one of his messages where you can look back and see all the dots connected to where God, where you prayed for and what God took
Yeah.
you to,
Yeah.
and I know I shared a story a little while ago about divine appointment, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
God will reach you when he wants to reach you and
Mm-hmm.
when he needs to reach you. And
Mm-hmm.
it's important, I think, for a lot of people to recognize that, like, I guess I used to be a big believer in coincidences, but now looking at it, you're like, well, this is God calling me. This is
Yeah.
God taking me somewhere. And it's, you mentioned journaling and writing down, I want community. And I mean, what better place to find community than, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, what we know as
Yeah.
Coin Church,
Yeah.
So how's that road been for you, looking back at this, situation with your previous relationship? Sounds pretty recent, right? So how has that been going for you? Like, how have you navigated that with your new faith, or not new faith, but like your reestablished faith?
Yeah. So yeah, when all of that happened, yeah, it was hard. It was really hard. I would say the first 3, 4 months were like the hardest, where I was in my room crying, like depressed. Like I was training from home at the time, like personal training. And I was just canceling sessions, and I was literally just laying in my bed, like off and on crying the whole time. And I used that time also to like sit with the Lord. I was praying, I was reading. Um and it was just like literally bringing all of it and like all of my tears and all of my like worries and my doubts and my questions like to the Lord in that moment, because it was like it was just it was heavy. It was really heavy. It was a lot. But it was like that the Lord obviously used that, to like show me more of himself and like show me a different, like his true character. Like I can like 100% say that I know the Lord's true character now. Like I know the Lord, not just as Savior, but as Lord. And I love how pastors always talking about that. And I'm just like, when that first clicked for me, I was like, man, like that's how I knew the Lord always. Like I just knew him as Savior. I knew him as like, yes, Jesus died for my sins and I believe I'm gonna go to heaven. Um, but it wasn't until like I took that step to leave, like the Lord was calling me to do that, and I finally like chose to obey, that he was like, "Okay, now I can show you. Now let's go."
Yeah.
Um and yeah, so it was just a lot of growth, a lot of growth. Like I said, I feel like it's been training ground um for whatever the Lord has for me next, within like ministry, leadership, and then again, like I said, within my home and my family, like just there's been a huge shift.
Hmm.
Yeah, and even just knowing who I am personally, because I lost that for a long time. For the whole all of those years, really, that I was in that relationship, I lost that, and
Hmm.
I didn't know who I was. I didn't know my voice. Um, I was really just like told to be silent and stay silent. Yeah, and that was just there was a lot that went on where I just lost myself, and the Lord was able to like reintroduce me to him and to myself, and yeah, just like who he's called me to be.
Hmm. So you mentioned calling a couple times in that, and I'm curious. You mentioned the Lord was calling you, and it wasn't until you decided to be obedient that He said, "Okay, now we can go." Like, what was that calling that you were feeling, that you were maybe
Uh
being disobedient to at the time?
yeah, to honestly to separate and to divorce. Um my ex-husband he struggled with alcoholism, substance abuse. Um and there was just a lot that came with that, and there was physical abuse, mental, emotional, like verbal, all of these things that I couldn't see in those years that I was in it, really. Like I knew things were like, this shouldn't be happening, but I kind of excused a lot of it. Um, and yeah, so there was a lot of that happening, and it's crazy to look back. Like I like some of this stuff was happening even in our dating phase. The alcohol, the substance abuse, the physical abuse started while we were dating, and there was a time frame where we were separated for almost a year. Um, and I went back, and I took it like I saw him in the street somewhere, and I took it as like, oh my gosh, Lord, like and I don't know, I don't know, but I know that what seemed like was better or good at that time, like getting back together, things still were not like healed, I guess on his end
Mm.
mostly, but also for me too. Like I was still choosing to continue in this cycle and this path. Um, and also that's something that I grew up watching. Like my dad was also struggled with that with alcohol. And as long as I can remember, I remember being in a car seat, like pulling over on the side of the road and my dad throwing up because he was drunk. And so I watched that cycle growing up of alcohol and being separated and being back together and being separated, being back together. Um, and I guess without even really knowing it at the time while I was in it too, like my mother was still going through that with my father. And so we was like just like back and forth. If they weren't going through it, I was going through it with my
Mm.
ex. And if I wasn't going through it, they were going through it. Um, and so yeah, there was a lot of that back and forth and just again, like with I guess subconsciously, like watching that growing up, like it's the same thing, generational cycle, and yeah, and I was my mother, and he was my father almost like,
Mm.
and so um, yeah, that started like I said before we were even dating, and well before we were even married, and it's just things that I even when we got married in Vegas. We were there for like a business event at the time, and we just decided we were gonna get married. And we're like, let's just get married. We were at that time we were back together for maybe 3 months. And for me, it was okay, like I have you back, like let's just get married.
Mm.
This is what I wanted. So let's just do it. And yeah, it was the same thing for him. So we were just excited and happy to be back together. And so we were like, let's just get married. And on the way there, like on the way to like the clerk's office, you go to the clerk's office, it's real easy over there, just da da da. It took maybe like an hour, 2 hours.
Wow. For a whole life decision, huh?
Yes. And there was tension in the car for sure. There was tension in the car. And it was almost like me asking myself, like, are you sure you should be doing this? And maybe it wasn't, yeah, it wasn't even me, but it was like the Lord, like, are you sure you should be doing this? Like, you should not. There's like yeah, almost like a pulling and a conviction in that of like, what are you doing? And yeah, so I ended up going through with it. Um, and it was crazy because I remember when we got back to the hotel, like our casino that we were staying at, we were walking in from the parking lot, the parking structure, and I just happened to look up and there was a car like just parked there. I don't know. And somebody was in the back seat. And I happened to look up and like make eye contact with this person. They're maybe like 20 feet in front of me. I don't know. But it was like dark, like all black, black hood, like pale face. And I was just like, I did not feel right. I did not feel right. And I was like, what did I just do? Like,
Mm.
that's literally how I felt. And I felt scared. Like, I felt like shaky. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I told um, my ex-husband, I was like, I think we should pray. And just looking back at it now, I'm like, okay, like you invite the Lord, you try to invite the Lord in afterwards,
After,
and
yeah.
like, but this is not what I don't think like what he wanted for you. And so it's like, okay, now that I'm afraid and now that I've already done what I've chosen to do, will you help me now? Because I'm a little scared, like,
Mm.
and yeah, so I remember that. And that night didn't go well. And then from then on it was just the same thing, once we got back home, I cycle. So I can look well, I was able to when I had them, like look back at pictures and like just normal pictures of like, I don't know, whatever I was taking pictures of, like, and know like this thing happened then, and this thing happened then, and this thing happened then, this thing happened then. And it was just so often that, yeah, again, it was just a cycle for those whole 2 years, that we were married. When I thought and I hoped, right, deep down that things would change, and get better within that new like marriage,
Yeah.
um, covenant, I would say,
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it did not. It actually got worse,
Mm.
and yeah, that was really like the calling to get back to that, like where throughout that, right, throughout that, the Lord showed me so early on too. Was like I feel like really like looking back, like was really trying to get me out of that still, like early on,
Mm.
like maybe. Mm, Probably like 2 months after was when I started receiving like messages from other women,
Mm.
like telling me like, yeah, just what he was doing and what he was trying to do. And I didn't take it for like face value. Like I didn't take it for what it was.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you feel like you were almost denying it, like denying what they were saying, or?
yeah, and I was, yeah, even just believing what he was saying more than what I actually felt and knew to be true.
Mm.
Um,
He meaning your
yes,
ex-husband? Okay.
yeah. Um, yeah, so there was a lot of that, and just a lot of anger. Um, I began to become angry too about all of that stuff because, yeah, I was just like, how, just why, how?
Yeah. Do
um,
you feel like your anger at that time was like directed to the Lord?
no,
Okay.
no, it was more so him,
Mm.
and then even just later on, I think it started being more towards myself,
Okay.
of like how how am I still here? How am I still stuck in this? Like, why can't I just walk away? Why can't I just leave? And I remember writing down, like asking the Lord this question at one point, like, why wouldn't you give me the strength to leave sooner
Mm.
or to leave earlier? And he was like, I did. Like, you were separate, right? And um, it was just that realization of like, I myself was not ready. And I, again, like taking that back to Jesus and God was not Lord over my
Mm.
life. Like, really, like, I was, again, reading through the Old Testament, I'm like mind blown because I just see myself as like the Israelites, and time and time and time and time again, how they rebelled and they chose idols and they did all of these things, and still the Lord chooses them, and still the Lord's like running after them and trying to show them mercy and grace. And I was reading through that and I'm like, Lord, why? Like, how can you do that? I'm like, that's crazy. But then it reminds me of myself, like, that was you too. Like, that
Mm.
is you still. And yeah, it's been really cool to see that, like how the Lord has like showed me that in myself. Because yeah, like all of these things were done to me and all of these things hurt me, um that weren't right, but I also played a part in that, right? And so the Lord's been able to show me it's not just about him and your ex-husband or your dad and like the things that they've done, but it's about you and like why you've allowed these things to continue to happen for so long and why you were stuck in that. And even just having a different lens of like seeing my mother in the same way too, like, that was really hard.
Yeah.
But
And you did mention when you had brought up your mother earlier that it is like a generational pattern, right? And I think it always comes down to like the one individual who's going to decide to break those chains, right? And it seems like that's you. It seems like you're making that decision for yourself and for your family and maybe even for your siblings, right? I mean,
mm-hmm.
maybe unknowingly at the time, but you carry yourself around with a different identity than what it sounds like you were describing
Yeah.
at that time. So,
Mm-hmm.
how would you describe your identity at that time of your life?
Mm. Uh, Scared for sure. Scared, confused, little, like small. Like not my I know I'm short, but like not that. Um just in like the value that I had for myself. Like I began to just see myself in a different light of like my own husband like won't doesn't like he's gone for days at a time. Like, he's drinking, he's entertaining other women, and that was really hard for me because the one person, right? Like, the one person that you feel you're supposed to be closest to and like safest to. And I did, like, for a time feel really safe with him. Like, I felt like he would protect me. Um he was my best friend. Like, what, I loved him, and I struggled with that. Um yeah, just like that betrayal and like that hurt, um of like, you're supposed to be like my person. Like, you're supposed to be mine in that sense, right? And so yeah, I was really like, I was afraid. A lot of the I think fear was not just for like my physical safety, but I was even just afraid of like life without him. And I remember that was one of the biggest things when when the when we separated. Um he was drinking, had been drinking, and there was just something that happened at home where I had to call the police. And so, yeah, the police came, um, and it was just, there was a lot of police there. And I wasn't expecting that, like, you know, but it was just like to the extent of what was going on, and like to the extent like there was weapons involved, like there was like SWAT cars there was police there. Everybody was standing outside the house, like the houses, like recording, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, why did I call? Um,
Mm.
but also knowing like that was my constant battle, like all the time. Like, don't call the police, like he's gonna get mad. Don't call the police, he's gonna get mad. Um, yeah, so um, but yeah, I was afraid. So I remember when that happened, the police came and like up to me, and when the officer that was like in charge had asked me like what I wanted to do, like, do you want to press charges? And I initially said no because I was afraid. Um, and he asked me, he says, "Can I ask you why?" And that was what I told him. I said, "I'm afraid, like I'm scared." And looking back at that, it just hit me so differently where I was like, I wasn't just saying I was afraid like physically, but I literally was afraid to lose him, like, and to lose, like, he has a son. Um, and I raised him with him and from the time that he was 7 months old till he was 7 years old. And um, I was afraid to lose that. And I was afraid of what life would look like moving forward without them. And I think that's really what I was saying that I was afraid of.
Mm.
Although I really was afraid of like any retaliation or like what would come from that. Um, I think I was really like internally more afraid of losing them, and yeah, just being obedient, really. Um, so there was a lot of fear in that, right? So I was, yeah. I think that would be like the biggest thing that I would say. Like, I was very fearful. Um, and I was very like distrusting of the Lord. Like, I didn't trust the Lord again. Like, how can you trust somebody who's not your Lord? Like, you know. Um, so yeah, fearful, little, but she's different now. Yeah.
So hearing that story, it sounds like your identity was definitely attacked, right? It's this is not who Jocelyn is. She's not this person. She's this other person, this little person, this scared person, this not trusting person, right? All lies now that we know from the enemy, right?
Hmm.
So that's who he said you were.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now, who does God say you are?
Yeah. God says that I am his beloved, for one, and that has stuck with me for, man, I guess this whole past almost 2 years. Like, I am his beloved. I am the apple of his eye. I am valuable. I am a warrior. I've like stepped into that fully. Um, yeah. I can trust him, for one. I have this. Ooh, I have this thing in my Bible, like a little paper that I found years ago. Um, and it says, "You're so beautiful. My plans for you are perfect. Trust in me."
Mm.
And that stood with me too because I like refound it during that time and I was like, "Oh Lord, like thank you." But yeah, even just that, like I am beautiful, right? When I didn't think that I was, like I struggled to believe that. I struggled with like my femininity, like I am beautiful. I am a woman of God. Um, I am a leader. Um, I am a good disciple. It's one of the things too that he's taught me. Um, yeah, those are a few that can come off the top of my head, but yeah.
Yeah. So now walking in that identity, do you ever feel like you have days where maybe you lose sight of that, or there's like days that you're struggling, and
hmm
what does that look like for you?
hmm Yeah, I do definitely still like struggle with that. And it's just randomly like I'll have a dream, like a bad dream or something, and um, or even just like yeah, just randomly like at work or it'll just pop in and creep in my head and I'm just like I have to really I've gotten really good at this and like better of like repeating those things. Like no, I am who the Lord says that I am.
Mm.
And I am not this person anymore and I don't believe that about myself anymore. Like you can try and I can maybe like start to ruminate on it a little but like no. And I have to really like that has been like my constant no. No, over and over. Whenever that happens, no. And then in Jesus' name, literally like rebuking things that I again like just I've never done that before. And so like being so confident in my relationship with the Lord now, like I have an authority. Um, the same power that raised Jesus Christ from the dead is the same power that lives inside of me even
Mm.
right now. And so anytime that I'm like feeling that, it's just yeah, I've gotten a lot better with that.
Yeah. So what is
Remind.
that awareness like, right? Because I think we all kind of go through these like seasons and patterns where maybe we feel a little off, but it takes some time to really recognize like, hey, something's not right here, right? Like, what is that like for you? Is it immediate now that you have this authority and confidence, or is it do you still find that you get lost in it sometimes?
I think there are still times I think where I can get lost in it. Yes. More so before like in the early stages of this
Mm.
or of this new season, I would say. Um that happened a lot more often. But now like on the times I guess where I can still get stuck in it, like I just picture myself literally like running to the Lord. And I just remind myself like that's been such a big word for me like remind yourself like remember. Um, and John Piper says this like remembering is the one of the greatest ministries. And I want to remember, right? Like I just take myself back to like what the Lord has brought me through and how all of the ways that he showed up. Like there are so many ways like within this last like oh, within the last 2 years that he has shown up for me that like when I had to move out of the house that we were living in, like right after that, I couldn't pay the last of it. Like I couldn't, you have to pay when you move out. So I was ready to text my family. Like they didn't really know what was happening. And I was like, wait, let me ask my best friend first and see if maybe she could help me. She had that amount to the dollar.
Really?
And she was like, friend, this has always been your money. Like it's just sitting here. And I was like, sitting in the floor, like crying in the house. Um, the Lord like taking us when that happened, that whole scenario when we separated. The police moved us 2 houses down, and at the time the house was vacant. Right, they moved us 2 houses down to keep us safe, keep us out of the way of anything that would happen. We end up moving into that house 2 months later, 3 months maybe later. And I'm just like remembering the Lord. Like there's a light post right in front of the house. And I remember leaning up against that light post and seeing the officer come towards me with a rifle, literally like his rifle in his hand, like just like tall, standing like firm, right? And I'm just like, I know that I'm safe, but like there was such a different vision and like a feeling of like the Lord is here with me. Like
Mm.
the Lord is protecting me right now. And I just started crying because I was like, I felt it so strong. And yeah, just literally leaning up against a light post. So when we moved into that house, I was like, Lord, this is my safe place. Like, this is my safe house. Like, you led us over there 2-3 months ago, and now we are moving into this house. Like, who would have,
I mean, the
like,
fact that it stayed vacant that entire time for you guys to get it. Yeah.
yes, like every single thing that the Lord did. When I started to serve at Coin, I think it was like the end of January. I was afraid. Like, I dealt with a lot of fear afterwards. Like, I was, again, like distrusting. I was scared to like go into new places. I was scared to run into people or have people tell me like, "Oh, you look so familiar." Like, I would get afraid of that because I was like, "Who do you know?" And like, who's asking?
Yeah.
And I struggled with that a lot. So even just going into Coin for the first time, I I was like starting to serve and like starting to say like, this is where I'm going to be at, and this is going to be my home church, and I'm going to serve here. I was scared.
Yeah.
And that morning, that first serving shadowing morning, that arresting officer comes into the building. And I was like, oh my gosh, Lord. Like, because I just felt like a release again of like, I'm
Yeah.
here. And one of the names of God that I've learned recently is Jehovah Shammah. The Lord is present, or the Lord is there. And so that's been like a staple throughout too, this whole time, where I'm like, the Lord is with me and the Lord is here. And just so, yeah, seeing all of those little things, like there are so many things. Like, again, I have like a bunch of stuff written down. Um, but those are a few that have like stood out the most. Like, I know that the Lord is with me, and I know that He's here, and I know that, right? Like, one of the first services that I heard too was like when Pastor was talking about like saying faith plus obedience equals miracle territory. And like, yeah, like me choosing to step out in faith and to walk in obedience led to all of these little things, like me being able to see and witness all of these things. Like, the Lord is like showing me constantly, even still, like, I am here and I'm taking care of you. And like, I'm walking in the way that the Lord has chosen me to walk in, like the way that He has planned for me to walk in. And there's fruit in that and blessing, right? And so I'm so like grateful and mind blown at like being able to see all of that like take place. Like, really,
Right.
it's been so cool. So sweet.
That's awesome. So knowing what you know now, right, of both sides, so the lies of who you were, the truth of who you are, putting that all together now, what do you think the Lord has like saved you from?
Mm. Um, Man, I feel like even just things getting worse, right, than what they were already becoming. Um, I remember that day too, the officer telling me like, when he was like asking me like, what do you want to do? Like, have you thought more about that question? And just saying, like, I remember my mother saying, I think it's time to just let it go and let the Lord do what He wants to do with him. And I remember the officer after that, like, and shaking his head, like in agreement with her, and him telling me that a lot of times, like, these cases, they just get worse, and people end up dead.
Hmm.
And I remember that just kind of like hit me hard because I was like, how how long, right? Like, am I gonna keep choosing this thing literally that's killing me spiritually, really? Um, and could eventually lead to something worse, right? And by God's grace, right? Like, I feel like I didn't have it as bad as other women have had it, like, but I feel like He saved me from a lot. I feel like even looking back at like all the things that took place and the times that He did get aggressive and the times that He did raise His voice, like, I feel like looking back, like the Lord was there. Like, I remember seeing a picture or hearing Victor Marx said this when he was younger. He was beaten by I think it was his dad or his stepdad. I don't remember. Um, but he was beaten and he was asking the Lord, like, why is this happening? Like, why aren't you stopping this? But he also in that moment like saw a picture of the Lord covering him, like
Mm.
his whole body over him. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it just made me look back and think like how many times was the Lord there with me that I didn't realize, you know? And just thinking of like the spiritual realm, like what was going on in those spaces, like fighting angels and demons fighting,
Mm.
like what does that look like, you know? But like having that kind of, I guess, that vision of that, like the Lord has protected me from so much, I feel like, that I didn't know, you know,
Yeah.
was happening. And yeah, I just feel like he just saved me from, yeah, things getting worse. Maybe from even like completely walking away from him and not coming back. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said exactly that about this image of, the Lord being there and covering. This morning, it's funny that I had this thought of like wondering why certain things are like a struggle, and like just kind of reflecting. Like when I do these interviews, I kind of put myself in the chair, right? I think like, okay, like if I was sitting in the chair and these were questions being asked, like how would I respond to them?
Mm-hmm.
And started thinking about like my life, and I had this thought of like some stuff that happened when I was a child, and thinking like, well, where was Jesus in this? Where was he in the room? And in my
Mm-hmm.
mind, I started going to this place like, where was he? Was he there? And it clicked for me. He's always been there. I can sit here and think. I know I told you the story of like BC days of I got here on my own. I did this on my own, but like, no, he was opening the doors. He was saying,
Yeah.
okay, this is the room I want you to walk in now, and these are the
Mm-hmm.
people that I want you to impact, and these are the people I want you to learn from. And even when things were hard, there's almost like a visual now I get of like, okay, he was sitting there watching to see how I responded, to see
Yes.
how I
Yeah.
went about things,
Mm-hmm.
and based off of that decision, he's like, okay, well then we're gonna go this route now, and
Yes.
maybe it's gonna take you a little bit longer because you
Yeah.
made this choice,
Mm-hmm.
but we're still gonna get you to where you need to be,
Yeah.
and I know Alicia and I shared our coming to Jesus story, but like I think all those decisions, whether they were good or bad decisions, led us to how we found him, and I think
Mm-hmm.
maybe the same could be
Mm-hmm.
said for you. Not to put your story in a box or anything, but
No, yeah.
I think it's interesting that you brought up that same visual of where was God, and this morning literally I had that same exact thought of like,
Mm-hmm.
well, where was Jesus in these things? So
Yeah. And I remember seeing there, or I read it somewhere, maybe in like a commentary, I think, but it said the Lord honors our choices,
hmm,
right? And like I was choosing these things and I was choosing to stay in this relationship when I felt like the Lord, right? I even asked him like, if you show me this, I'll leave. And he did. He did. He showed it to me. And I was, again, during that time, I was gone for maybe 2 weeks or three, almost a month. And I went back. And yeah, but like, yeah, the Lord honored my choices, right? And that's one of the things that I really struggled with too in leaving, um, was that after the fact, right? I was watching still my mother and my father go through that same cycle, still the same patterns. Um, and it hurt a lot. Like it just made me feel like, oh, like frustrated and like sick, and like I couldn't see them. I couldn't see my dad, like 'cause he reminded me of my ex-husband. And yeah, I remember when I saw my dad at one point, I just started crying because I couldn't take it. Like I couldn't deal with it. But I remember thinking too, like seeing my mom and my dad, right? Like going through that, continuing to still like be in that same cycle. Like I said earlier, the Lord gave me a different lens, like looking at my mom, like I am no better than my mother. As frustrated and angry as I was with her and him and like that cycle, I had to like really let the Lord tell me, like, you are no better.
hmm,
I am no better than even my dad or my ex-husband. I am no better. Um, but I remember realizing too that my mother's choices to continue to stay with my father and continue to like choose that same thing affected us, like me and my siblings growing up and our family, like outside of us, you know? Um, and I really struggled with that because when I realized that too, within that same I am no better, I also realized that my decisions and my choices to stay for that whole time, right, also affected his son's life. And that hit me hard and it hurt like really like it hurt a lot because he lost his family too, he lost this side of his family and it was so sudden like I didn't get to say bye to him. So he doesn't know, like I don't know what he was told. Um and that just hurt me the most. Like that was the hardest thing, like leaving because I was leaving him. And I was his mother. Um I loved him like he was my own. I took care of him like he was my own. Um Everybody thought he was my own. And so just having that realization um was humbling because you know we can get stuck in like a self-righteous mindset, at least I could, right? Like of, well, I chose to leave and you're still here, you're still going through it, but still, like the Lord is still constantly reminding me like you are no better. um but yeah, that realization, like again, like the Lord honored my choices, but there are consequences to
Mm.
my choices, and it doesn't just affect me, it affects everybody else. It affected him, and that was really hard for me to like move past. Initially it's gotten better, um because I know like the Lord is protecting him, right? And the Lord ultimately, like the Lord loves him more than I ever could love him,
Mm.
and he is the Lord's son, like you know um and the Lord's holding him in his hand, so he knows. um so yeah. Mhm.
So now that you have moved past and are still kind of working through all of this, I'm sure you're still spending time with the Lord on the healing that comes from this. What advice would you give to somebody who maybe is still currently in a season similar to that, where there is alcoholism, abuse, physical, mental, anything of that nature? Like what advice would you give to somebody that's struggling with that?
um I would say, like, heed what the Lord, like, you feel like the Lord is telling you, like, heed to the Lord's, like, instruction, and to his, like, the pulling and because we do feel that. I know that that's so real, like a pull in our flesh, like, it's something that's sometimes hard to explain, but the best way I can describe it is, like, it's like a literal, like, you feel like you're literally being pulled, like, and I struggled with that a lot too, but definitely, like, heed the Lord's instruction and heed to, like, what he's telling you. Um, I feel like that's my biggest piece of advice, honestly, like that. And just, yeah, seek counsel and seek guidance, but also like be in the word, because I know it's sometimes hard to, like, when we seek counsel, seek guidance, like outside of like someone from the outside, like they can't really tell you what to do, like they won't really tell you what to do. And I feel like it's such a hard, like, it's like a boundary line, like they don't want to cross the boundary line. But also maybe even be open to like hearing the truth and hearing like wise counsel and hearing the truth and love from somebody, because I know that even going through it, like while we're still in it, it can be so hard to like fully hear it and take it in. Like it's just like bouncing off and not being like settled in. Because sometimes we don't really want to hear the truth.
Hmm.
Um and I think that's something that I realized to like be careful also in, I would say, like over spiritualizing things. Like I've struggled with that too. And I think that's just such a big thing, like especially in seasons of separation or something new, and like a letting go of something, and choosing to obey the Lord, but that thing is still trying to pull you back and you're still being pulled in that direction. It can be so easy to say, like have something, like I see you in the street, and like, oh Lord, like, you know, um, but it's like you've gone out in faith, so now stay out in faith. Like if you've already taken that step, but um yeah, just it's difficult. I feel like it's hard to kind of really give like an exact answer, but heed and seek counsel, be open and willing to hear the truth and love. Um, and even when you do hear counsel and wisdom, like take that to the Lord still, like, you know, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Um, moving forward from that part of your life, now that you do walk in this confidence and authority, um, are there moments where you still feel like disconnected from the Lord, where you feel like maybe whether it's something that you're doing or not receiving, where you feel like, man, this is just not working right now. Like I feel distant. I feel like I'm not connected to the vine. Do you ever have those moments?
I think there was a couple of times more recently where I started to feel that. And it felt like it was like, I mean, like random. Like I actually, maybe at that time, like I wasn't reading as often. And I think that's when I started to feel that again. I was like asking myself, like, Lord, why am I feeling this way? Like, why am I? But then realizing, like, okay, you're not doing this like you used to. Like, you're not, reading, you're not journaling. But yeah, definitely like not as often for sure. I definitely feel like I am abiding. Like that was one of my words for this year to like abide. Um, where I felt like I was already doing that and I just wanted to step deeper into that.
Hmm.
Um, so I do feel like my relationship is really like strong and solid with the Lord right now. And it's a good feeling, it really is like to just feel like you are literally like one with the Lord.
Right. And how do you keep that going for yourself, right? Because I know with the busyness of life and work and even community, ironically enough, can pull you away, right? If you're
Mm-hmm.
spending a lot of time like doing for others rather than being with God, like how do you find yourself like persistent with that faith
Yeah.
and walk with God?
Yeah. I I typically will spend time either in the morning or the evening, if not both. I'm reading. Um and even I feel like Hafuta has helped. I'm in Hafuta right now. And I've been in one other one, maybe a couple other ones. But that's definitely helped too because it's like you're setting aside time to do this. Like you're setting aside time to read, but then you're also setting aside time to like express and really sit with the Lord. Like, what are you trying to show me? Cell group has been a big part of that too. Um, yeah, just the consistency of those things
Mhm.
has really helped. So I would say like for me, like community so far has been like part of me continuing to abide and part of me continuing to grow in my relationship rather than like a pulling away.
Mhm.
um, I would say if anything is a pulling away, it was starting to be like work. Or when I first started working like multiple jobs and like being really involved in community, I was like, there's like a lot going on.
Mhm.
Um, where that was the thing that I had to like really shift and be like, okay, like this is priority and this has to happen, like, you know, like being in my word and being in prayer. So
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. And so I think that says a lot for a lot of people, right? There's a handful out there, and not to, come off judgy or any sort of way, but there's a lot of people out there that feel like their relationship with God is enough, right? It's enough
Mm-hmm.
to sustain them, but they're
Mm-hmm.
lacking that community aspect in
Mm-hmm.
some ways, right? What advice would you give to those people?
Get in community, girl, or man, boy, whatever. Get in community because that is, like I said, like it was one of the things I was craving. Like I never really had that. Like, yes, I was going to church, but I wasn't as involved. And then there was just a big, like, I guess, like a gap in like, yeah, relationship there. It was different atmosphere, different age groups. But community, like especially having started cell group for like we've been doing cell group for at least I have for like a year now or a little over a year, and it has been so like revealing. Like the Lord has used like these people Oh, and I love this quote. It says like the Lord wants to talk to your friends about you.
Mm.
And he really does. Like he really does. And there's things that, like we can't always hear for ourselves. Or if we hear it for ourselves, it's like, is that really true? But then you're getting affirmation from the outside. And it's like this person tells you the same thing. And then somebody else tells you the same thing. And it's like, Lord, like, what are you trying to tell me? This is what I'm trying to tell you, Um, and he makes things so clear. And it really just like, again, like we always say, it calls us to more. Like it really has done that. And it's like a pulling out of like who the Lord has really called you to be, because when you're doing life with these people, like they're able to see things in you that, again, like I may not have been able to see right away when I was still going through all of these things. And even just, through the healing process, um, it's just also like they're able to remind you of who you are also, and speak life and speak truth over you. Um, but yeah, community is huge. Like I've never experienced it before, like up until being here at Coin. So
And it's what you prayed
it's
for.
been life changing. Yes. Yeah, for sure. Life changing. And I always say like, I've never had like so many people surrounding me, or like so many friends, it feels like,
Yeah.
and like being able to like genuinely get to know people and like walk alongside and pray over and pray for these people, and like them praying for me. Like it's been so cool. And like the Lord has shown me
Yeah.
a lot through them.
That's awesome. That's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. Well, I do appreciate, again, I know I mentioned to you a second ago, I appreciate you being here, right? Being a supporter of the Narrow Collective as long as you have been. And, one part that we always do in these interviews is talk about like the inspiration behind the Narrow Collective, right? It's inspired by Matthew 7:14, but small is
Mm-hmm.
the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only few find it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious if you've ever like reflected on that scripture and like what your thoughts are about it.
Mm-hmm.
And also want to know where you may be struggling on that narrow road,
Mm-hmm.
if you have any insight on that.
I think when I think about that, and this I guess kind of ties in with community too. I was reading a book, I don't know, sometime last year. Um, it's called Lioness Arising by Lisa Bevere. And she gives like this example of um lionesses, like, you know, um crossing over like a barrier, right? They're passing through a gate. Um, and how one of them waits for the other to go first, and like to make sure everything's good, like it's safe. And I remember reading that and I was like, oh, that's so good, because it's like when we are going through something, or when we do go through something hard, like we are drawn to people that have gone through the same things. And we are drawn to people who have gone before us and can give us advice and give us wisdom on these things. Um, so when I think of the narrow collective and like the narrow road, I think of that, because she gives the example too of like somebody crossing over a bridge, and like there's other people on the other end of the bridge. And the bridge is like not like a nice, a strong bridge. It's like a crinkly, whatever, like ruggedy, like breaking down bridge. And this person decides to go first, right? And cross over to the other side. And so when they're on the other side, they're not only able to say, like, it's all clear over here, but it's all good. Like, come with me, and like inviting people to come with you. And that has stuck out to me so much, because, again, like the training ground thing, like having gone through all of this, like I truly believe that the Lord has like prepared me for that. Like I have gone before, so now I'm going to invite whoever's back here to come with me, because not only is it all clear, like you're going to be okay, like it's good. It's not bad, like I know it's scary, but it is good. Like it is so good. So come on the other side, like, and even just again, like thinking of the narrow road as like that bridge where it's scary. Like you are terrified to cross over and walk through that. But there's so much like fruit on the other side. Like even just thinking about like stepping into the promised land that's flowing with milk and honey, right? Like what the Lord has for you is on the other side of that. And it's going through that.
Yeah.
Like, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, like walk through it, right? Like, and even that part's hard. Like, I fear no evil. Do I really fear no evil? No. Like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
But yeah, just trusting like that the Lord is on the other side. And not just on the other side, but he's there with you through it. And like he has his hand out right here and he's like waiting for you to grab it. And just come on, daughter. Like that was one of the things that was pointed out to me, like, come here, daughter. You're not safe there. Come back to where you belong. And I remember my best friend sharing that with me, and I was like, but yeah, just again being able to share that with whoever else is coming behind, and like maybe it's like even too narrow to walk 2 by 2, but like let me carry you on my back. You know, like let me carry you because I was carried and I'm strong enough now to carry somebody else with me. So let me do that for you, you know? And having the courage to even do that and say that to somebody, like, I want to do this with you because I know that there's so much more on the other side. And when people, honestly, when people tell me like they're going through something hard or something similar, I can't help but say, I'm so excited for you because I know that it's hard and it's gonna be hard for a while, but the Lord has so much better. And like his way is so much better. Jackie Hill Perry says it. She says, let it go, let it burn, let it fly, because Jesus is better anyways. And it's so true. Like being able to like live that out and experience it. And again, you can't share what you have not experienced, right? And so being able to like, yeah, just experience, and again, not just experience those things, but like experience the Lord and the fullness of who he is, and being able to share that with somebody, because it's not just about like these tangible like steps that we take that we always seek, like, well, I need to do therapy or I need to get this counseling or that. Those are good. Yes, I was in therapy, I did all of that, but you need to be with the Lord and you need to pray and you need to be on your knees and you need to take these things to him, and I'm going to do that with you. So yeah, that's the narrow, just walking.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I love that. I love that. Where do you feel you've grown the most on this narrow road over, let's say, the last year or so?
Hmm. Um, like in myself and like my
Yeah, in your walk, like where do you feel like you've seen the most growth in yourself?
I've seen the most growth in how I speak, for sure. Um, and in my authority, like the way that yeah, just like, I feel like I allow the spirit to move through me now. And I'm like open to that. I'm like, Lord, like asking him to do that. I've grown so much in like my reading and understanding of the word. Like before I would read the Bible and like, I don't know what's Old Testament. I don't know what they're saying, just naming all these names and like all of these things, right? But having gone through it, I'm still going through that, but like having gone through it, like being able to literally like understand. And it's like the Lord is like actually speaking these things to me and like showing these things to me. And I'm reading this part and I'm remembering what was said like over here. And I'm reading this part and I'm remembering what was said over here. And that's been so cool to me because I'm like, Lord, like I'm able to remember like these things that I'm reading are like sticking with me. Like it's not just like hard ground anymore. It's like soil that is ready to take in like what the Lord is saying and take in his word so that it can go forth still even more. Um, so I've grown a lot in that. Again, like my authority, like I'm I'm in my home, like I've noticed that in my home, like praying over like my mother or praying over my grandmother, like in a time where my mother was like just hurting and crying, like, and all I knew to do was to pray. I'm just gonna pray over you right now. And I never would have done that before, you know? I
Yeah.
would have maybe gone in my room and prayed after, but like there's so much power in doing that thing there in the moment and like speaking the name of Jesus and using my voice again to like cast out. Um, so I've grown a lot in that. My word, my reading, my authority. Um, yeah, and just in like loving God Like, I remember laying down in my bed one night, and I actually, like, couldn't help but say, I just, like, was crying, and I was like, "I love you, I love you, I love you." And I just was, like, mind blown by that because I have never felt like I ever loved the Lord like that, or even said that and, like, meant it so deeply, right? Or even said it so much, like, but it was like, "I love you." And so I've grown in an intimacy and a love with the Lord. And I feel like one of the things that he's calling me to now, like, I've known him as Savior, I've known him as Lord, but like, let me show you Father
Mm,
a little bit deeper. And so I'm kind of just stepping into that now, um, and trying to practice saying Father more, or Abba.
mm.
Um, so yeah.
Nice, nice. If you don't mind me asking, what is your relationship with your parents now, being on like the other side of everything you went through?
hmm My relationship with my mother is fine. It's good. I live with my mother, and I feel like just even within this last few months, where there's kind of been a shift in her relationship with my dad. I just was able to share more of my heart with her and more of what I was actually seeing, like the truth, like sharing the truth in love.
Mhm,
Um, where I felt like that brought us a little bit closer. Um, because that was something I've never done before either. Like, I never had the confidence to speak the truth, you know. And then knowing now to do that in love, like, I do have an authority, and it is okay for me to say this thing to you.
mhm,
Um, One, because I've gone through it, and one, because I love you and the Lord loves you, and I want you to experience, the fullness of what he died for. Um, and that's, yeah. Um, my dad, I don't really speak with my father. And I haven't spoken with him for maybe off and on for the last almost 2 years again, still. Um, so that's still something that is a struggle for me. Um, just because, again, like, it is still that same like cycle and pattern.
mhm.
And I've learned to have like boundaries, healthy boundaries. But one of the things too the Lord has been reminding me of again is like, you are no better. So when I want to like choose to isolate myself from him completely, it's like, still show love and still like, yeah, just still show love and still choose love and forgiveness and grace and mercy, like, because you are no better and because I have shown you so much grace. Again, like, that's been a constant, like, the Lord is reminding me of, like, I know this hurts and I know he's hurt you. And I know it hurts you to see him hurt your mother, but still, like, I am still the Lord. And then just asking myself, like, how the Lord sees him, um, and that he is his son, and that he does love him, and that he will still keep choosing him, and still wanting to show him grace and still keep running after him. And it's so hard. And you cannot do it without the Lord. Like, you cannot. You can't. Um, but there's still, like, again, with the Lord, like, he will give you the strength and the grace to even like be and step in relationship or be cordial, you know.
Yeah.
Um so just reminding myself of that, because it is hard still. It's really hard.
And that does lead me to my next question, which I feel is going to be a hard question for you. But if I may ask, have you forgiven your father and your ex-husband?
I have. Yeah, I have. And that's actually been something that's been, again, just like a constant reminder, because I when it's been crazy to see how, when you hear sermons, or usually this happens, I think, when you're in church and you're hearing a sermon or a study, and the pastor's saying all these things that you feel like this person needs to hear.
Hmm.
Um, like, oh, this is for them. Oh, this is for you. Like, let me send this to you. But like, it's not just for them, it's for you also. And I think just getting out of that mindset of, again, back to who am I? I am no better than them either. Um, but it's just always like a constant reminder of how does the Lord see them. And that has literally been the only thing really that has like, I think, brought me out and like, if I could say this, like given me a heart of flesh for them rather than a heart of stone, because it could be so easy for me to just shut out and okay, I'm done, like, but there's still prayer. And like even just randomly too, like maybe a couple weeks ago I just felt like this tugging, like praying for my ex-husband. And it was like a deep praying, like it was like I was crying and I was like calling out to the Lord, and I was like, that was random and it was weird, but um yeah, and then being open to that, like being open to be like continuing to pray when I feel called or led to,
Mhm.
um but I do have to remind myself of that, because I never ever want to like speak negatively of them, right? I want, obviously, like it's okay to share the truth, and I've had to like work through that. Like it's okay to share the truth without shaming them or without like tearing them down, because the Lord is still, I believe that the Lord is still going to use that. And I am believing too, like for like salvation, especially for my ex-husband, and that he will see like the fullness again of who God is, and like he'll experience that and he'll be able to help whoever is behind him.
Mm.
And even his son, like his son loves him to death. Like he's his best friend. Like his daddy is like, he would read this book called God Made Daddy Special. And I always wanted him to really fully believe that, right? Like, and but not only for him, but like for him to also believe that about himself.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, just a reminding and a praying and really seeing them for who they are truly, right? Just because things have happened and they've done things, like, does not make them any less of God's child, does not make them any less of God's son. Like, they are also his beloved, and they are also the apple of his eye, and he still desires them
Right.
in their hearts. So
Yeah, and that's huge. I think that it is an inspiration to hear that, because I know there's a lot of people out there who have gone through similar stories, some worse, some maybe not as bad, or maybe not even the same dynamic, but just can't find it in their heart to forgive.
mm-hmm.
And to hear your story of what you went through and say, yeah, I have forgiven them and they are God's children. Like, I think that shows the level of like love in your heart that the Father has given you, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if he could forgive us being sinners,
Yeah.
how can we not forgive other sinners,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's amazing. It's an amazing like part of your testimony to know that you've gone through this, but God showed you what forgiveness looks like, and you've been able to reciprocate that to others
Yeah.
who some people may not feel deserve it, but in your heart, you're like, yeah, I forgive them.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I guess now that we're kind of approaching, the end of this interview, like I'm curious, what would you hope somebody takes away from hearing your story? Like, do you feel like on your heart to share anything additional, or is there something that you want people to resonate with from this?
I feel like um I feel like really the main thing that I have, especially just within this last season, like learned and am growing in still, is like trusting the Lord. Um, and that is my hope, like that everybody would be able to trust the Lord, like even just enough to like say, yes, Lord, I'm going to take this step. It's hard and I don't want to do it and I'm scared, but I'm just going to trust you. Like I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to trust you. Um, that's one of my biggest hopes, is that like people, yeah, would get to experience that, like trusting him, and then get to experience the fullness of him, um, through their obedience and through their trusting in him. um, I think too, even, yeah, just like you're not too far gone is just on my heart right now too. Like you are not too far gone, and that's my hope, for my ex-husband and for my father. And no matter what that looks like, right? That doesn't always mean reconciliation. Like I understand that now. I grew up seeing like the patterns of like forgiving and coming back together and forgiving and coming back together. Um, and I was like, Lord, if I forgive, like, why isn't this happening? Like, why aren't we back together? But that is not always the case.
Mm.
And that's okay. Like, you can forgive and still be separate. You can forgive and still move on. Like, the Lord still has plans for you. Like, just because that didn't happen doesn't mean like that's the end or it's over, like for you, and your relationship with the Lord and your plans or your future that, you know. Um, but yeah, you're not too far gone. Um, the Lord loves you like more than you could ever imagine. Like the Lord loves you. Um, and I think just for the women specifically, I have like just a really heart for like the women. Now, Vodi Bakum says this, and I remember when I heard it, I was like, I'm gonna take that with me and run, and I'm gonna just like keep it on my heart, and I'm gonna share it with whoever. Um, but he's giving a sermon, and he says, like, this is an urgent plea. Like, he's gonna say this with all the urgency that he can. And he says, if you have not met a man or found a man whose godliness you want stewarding your children, do not marry him. And he says, he will be the father of your children, and he will shepherd and be this like the shepherd of your family. And I remember when I heard it, I was like, Lord, like, ouch, like that hurts, but it is so true, because he goes on to say, like, not only will you be having to save your children from the world on the outside, but you'll be having to save them and try to keep them from the ungodliness of your husband that is also an example to your children. And I, moving forward, want that for myself, right? I want to be with somebody whose godliness I do want stewarding my children, hopefully, Lord willing, Um, and there'll be just such a different like atmosphere than what I've experienced before. And I'm believing in that, right? That the Lord will provide that for me, and the Lord will let me experience that um, to the fullest. And I know there'll probably be like challenges with that, because I'm like, Lord, this is kind of weird, but like, you know, I do believe that that's the most beautiful thing. So for the women, um, take that for what it is and heed to it, because he also says too within that, like, there are plenty of Christian women who would plead with you and tell you, girl, don't do it. Like, don't do it. He says exactly like that. And I was like, oh, that's funny. Um, he says, girl, don't do, like, literally, like, you would plead with your best friend or with your sister or whoever, like, don't do it before, it's not too late, but before you step into something that you didn't have to step into and you didn't have to like experience in that way.
Mm.
Um, that's one of the things that stood with me and has been on my heart, because, and I can say that, right, because I've experienced that. And so um, I would just, again, like, yeah, I want you ladies to experience the fullness of what marriage and covenant is supposed to be, with the Lord at the center of that.
Obviously, this walk that we're all on, it's a daily
Mhm.
thing, right? It's a daily walk. It's a daily dying to the old self and walking in the newness that the Lord calls us to, right? So looking into the future now, what is something that you would pray for yourself for like this next year?
Mm. I would pray for myself to like keep my eyes on the Lord. And I pray this pretty often, like, Lord, keep my eyes on you, like, keep my heart, my mind, my eyes, like, focused on you. Not getting distracted, because early on in this healing stage, like, I started getting distracted. And yeah, so I think I would pray that over myself, like, stay with the Lord. And there's this Instagram reel that I don't know if anybody's heard it, but it's like an ambulance, like an EMT, and there's ambulance sirens going on in the back. And it's like, stay with me. Like, he's trying to save somebody, like, stay with me. And people use it often with like videos that they're talking about their relationship with the Lord or like going through something hard. And there's been times where like I've been like struggling or going through it and like questioning, and like feeling sad, and it's like I hear that in my mind, like, stay with me,
Mm.
stay with me, and then just, yeah, continuing to choose, because I recently went through um just like one of those like pulling moments where
Mm.
I really felt like I was being pulled, and I was close to making a decision that I shouldn't have made. Um and I had to that was one of the moments where I said no, no. And so I would pray over myself that in those moments, like when they do come, because I'm sure they will, um, to continue to say no and to continue to choose to stay out in faith and to stay with the Lord. Um, yeah, and just to keep seeing myself as a warrior. Like I am in battle every time I'm out there. Like I'm in the mission field. Every time I wake up, right? Like the enemy's just ready, and like there's things that are gonna come, but like I'm gonna stay ready. I'm gonna put on the full armor, and I'm gonna walk with the Lord. And the lion's behind me, and he's like right here, like, don't touch my girl, you know? So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. And so the last question that I like to ask is kind of a reflective question of, if the Lord was here, Jesus was sitting here in this room, it was just you and him, what would you say to him?
Hmm. I honestly don't think that I would have words to say to him initially. When I picture that and I think about that, I picture myself just like looking at him and like crying, and like I'm crying and I'm like running to him, and I just fall into his arms and like let him hold me, and I hold him back. And I'm just sitting there for a while, you know? And I just tell him I love you. Um yeah, because I just feel like he's been holding me like this whole time, and like actually like getting to feel like him. Like I'll sit in my room, um and I'll have my Bible open, and I'll just like sit it up with it up against my chest, and I'll just hold it like I'm hugging him, and I close my eyes. And there's a song, Lean Back by oh my gosh, Amanda, I forget her last name. Amanda Cook. But it says, I'll lean back in the loving arms of the Father. Um, and there's another song, I think it's Stephanie Gretzinger, that says, I want to sit at your feet and drink from the cup in your hand. Lean back against you and breathe and feel your heartbeat. And those songs always stood out to me because I'll like listen to them and I'll close my eyes and just picture that. Like I just want to be sitting up against the Lord, or I just want to be held by the Lord. And I'll sit like that in my room, like with my Bible, and I'll just like I'm leaning up against him. And so if the Lord was in this room right now, like that is what I see myself doing, like just falling into him and letting him hold me. Yeah, I'm just telling him I love him. And letting him like wipe my face and my tears, you know? So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jocelyn, for sharing your story. It's an amazing story. I mean, it's a story of redemption. It's a story of salvation. It's a story of faith and forgiveness when nobody else would possibly continue to have that faith. And so I really appreciate you spending time doing this, and I'm just excited to see all the good things that are coming your way. And I would encourage you, of course, not that I need to, but continue on your path. I think you're going to be, not only you yourself, but your story is going to be an inspiration for many. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.